Hello, welcome to this Hearthbeat invitation video for seasonal celebrations. We're here pretty much, well, approaching the southwest time in the Wheel of the Year, which is traditionally the beginning of the harvest time in the Northern Hemisphere. Um, Certainly in Middle Europe zone, which is where I am here in the west of Ireland. And we would like to invite you to explore the traditions of the seasonal celebrations where you live. Um, so, seasonal celebrations, or what's often called the Wheel of the Year, is really pan-cultural all over the planet Earth. As in human culture, we celebrate traditionally the different significant points as we move through the seasons, or the Wheel of the Year. And we're approaching one of those, which is the beginning of the harvest time here in the west of Ireland and for much of Europe and for much of the Northern Hemisphere. And so we thought it's a beautiful time to invite you to go a little deeper with that, whatever your personal journey might be with that or not. So I'm just going to describe a little bit about where we are here in terms of the traditional Wheel of the Year in Ireland. So it is coming up to late July here. It's mid to late July. And we have a seasonal celebration coming up that happens around the beginning of August usually. And it's called Lunasa. And it's named after Lu, who is a god of the sun. And when we celebrate the harvest, we're also very much celebrating the sun, because the sun is what pours all that incredible energy down on the planet in the summer season, which creates such an abundance in the biosphere, much of which we harvest as human beings, whether as food or medicine or shelter. But especially there's a big focus on food. But I would also say medicines. There's so much to be harvested right now and brought in and either used fresh or stored. And so it's really a time of giving thanks and celebrating all that the sun gives us in that way. And here, Lunasa is called one of the traditional fire festivals. So the Wheel of the Year really is the winter and the summer solstice and the spring and the autumn equinox. And then there's these 4 points in between those, which are what in Ireland here are called the fire festivals, and they kind of mark the beginning of the seasons, like they're the gateways into the seasons. So Lunasa is the gateway into really the season of the harvest, which later on will become autumn. And so there were fire festivals here because we always had big fires, community fires in community spaces, often at crossroads, before the roads were taken up more by cars and people's lifestyles meant that they're moving around a lot. So yeah, a big fire would have been traditional here. Also with the harvesting of the grains, and they would be making what's sometimes called corn dollies, so like making little figurines out of what's left of the corn husks, or else out of straw, so what's left after the harvesting of grass grains, different grass grains, were also made into lovely figurines, or even love knots. They could be given as gifts. They could be used to signify certain deities at this time of year. And I've also been taught that how you find Lunasa, so in modern calendar it's considered the 1st of August, but the way I've been taught it by a teacher of mine here, Emer Cloherty, it's a lunar festival. So the equinoxes and the solstices are are marked by the path of the sun, whereas the fire festivals are marked by the path of the moon, which makes so much sense to me because the moon is making these the sun is making these big changes throughout the year, and then the moon is always almost filling in the details in a way. And so here, traditionally in Ireland, the year began at Samhain, which is the fire festival that is the gateway into the winter time, which is around the beginning of November. So there's a specific way of counting here when each of the fire festivals happen, counting from the dark moon fire festival that is Samhain, and Lunasa is a waning moon, so the energy is just starting to wane. So it's a half waning moon fire festival here. So that's just an example of here, and really the invitation is to look at the local traditions where you are. And some questions to ask yourself is, what were the points of the year? What were the seasonal celebrations? And how did people celebrate? Also, an interesting question is, when was the year considered to begin? Because the year wasn't considered to begin here in the spring. It began in the darkness. It honors that life actually begins in the darkness. The seeds go underground at the beginning of the winter. And all of that time in the winter is vital for the seed to germinate in the spring. So a lot of seeds have to go through that cold snap in order to germinate, for example. So when was the year considered, or is it considered to start where you live? What are some of the seasonal celebrations? And are any of the traditional seasonal celebrations still happening anywhere? And is it a revival, or is it actually a community-based ritual that's actually an unbroken lineage? There are some of those here, for example, where I live around the summer solstice. There's still big community bonfires happening in little townlands, and that's been going on for a really long time, into we don't know how long. So that's a really interesting thing to look at, cause there's a lot of revival going on, but are there actual community-based ones that have unbroken lineage going back, happening anywhere near where you live? And that can be a process of finding out, because I only found out this year that there are still some local big bonfires happening for summer solstice, and that's part of my own personal inquiry. And also, you may or may not already celebrate the seasons in these ways, but if not, how could you? Like, being inspired by how it was traditionally done, or connecting with how it's traditionally done, how can you connect to that in a meaningful way? Because these traditions, they're not just, they were born out of connections. The reason why those corn dollies or grain dollies are made here is because there was an abundance of that material at that time. Imagine taking all of the grains and you're just left with all of this straw. It's like, it's an abundance of a material. So it's a place-based, in a particular time of year practice that's done. So that's really the invitation, to look wherever you are in this journey, to look a little deeper into what the traditions are, and really look inside yourself and ask, what is the meaning of that? Like, why was it done in that way? And is that something I can connect to? Or how could I connect to that? And also, is there some way I can bring that to my community? If there isn't something already happening locally, is there something I could share with someone else? It could just be a dear friend or your family, or maybe in a more community event or community setting, but it doesn't have to be big. The most important thing is we feel it in our bodies. Something is sacred when it's heightened connection. So the most important thing is not the motion, but the feeling that goes with that. Is it bringing connection? Is it bringing opening our hearts? Is it bringing in gratitude? Is it bringing in new awareness? Is it heightening our connections? Okay, so enjoy this invitation, and we look forward to exploring it further in our next Heartbeat call. Bye for now.